Stop! Before you spend that 1971 Kennedy half-dollar, take a closer look. That 50-cent coin sitting in your collection, coin jar, drawer, or old family box could be far more interesting than it looks. And no, I'm not saying every 1971 Kennedy half-dollar is automatically worth a fortune. The real story is much more interesting. Collectors look for specific varieties, unusual mint-made characteristics, exceptional condition, strong surfaces, and coins that have survived decades without being damaged or altered. So if you have a 1971 Kennedy half-dollar nearby, don't put it back yet. Pick it up, turn it over, look at it under a bright light, because we're about to examine the exact areas that can help you understand whether your coin is simply a normal circulated half-dollar or something that deserves much closer attention. And here's the first rule you need to remember. Do not clean it. Don't polish it. Don't rub it with a cloth. Don't use silver cleaner. Don't use chemicals. Don't scratch the surface. If you think you've discovered something unusual, preserve the coin exactly as you found it. Why? Because the original surface is part of the coin's history. Now let's start with the most obvious detail, the date. You're looking for 1971. Take your time. Don't just glance at the 4 numbers. Use magnification if you have it. Look carefully around the edges of every digit. Does anything appear doubled? Is there an unusual raised line? Does one number look different from the others? If you see something strange, don't immediately assume you've found a rare error. That's one of the biggest mistakes new collectors make. A scratch can create a line. A dent can distort a digit. Wear can make a number look unusual. A reflection can create the appearance of doubling. So the first step isn't excitement. The first step is comparison. If possible, find another normal 1971 Kennedy half-dollar. Put the coins side by side. Compare the date, compare the shapes, compare the lettering, compare the surfaces. This simple comparison can tell you much more than staring at one coin by itself. Now let's move to another important area. The mint mark. Depending on the specific 1971 issue, the mint mark helps identify where the coin was produced. Look carefully at the area around the mint mark. Use a magnifying glass. Move the coin slowly under the light. Is the mint mark clear? Does it look normal? Is there anything unusual around it? If you notice something suspicious, take a photograph. Don't touch the area with anything sharp. Don't scrape it. Don't polish it. Don't try to make the feature bigger. The coin itself is the evidence. Now here's where things start getting interesting. Kennedy half-dollars have been collected for decades, and collectors don't simply look at the date. They study varieties, they study minting characteristics, they study condition, they study strike quality. They study surfaces, and they compare coins with known examples. That means a 1971 Kennedy half-dollar that looks ordinary at first could still be worth investigating if it has a genuine unusual characteristic. But remember something extremely important. Unusual does not automatically mean valuable. That's a rule worth repeating. A strange-looking mark isn't automatically a rare error. A shiny surface isn't automatically high grade. An old coin isn't automatically rare. And an internet listing isn't automatically a real market value. Serious collectors want evidence. Now look at the front of the coin. Study John F. Kennedy's portrait. Look at the hair. Look at the cheek. Look at the jawline. Look at the ear. Look at the neck. Then examine the surrounding lettering. How sharp are the details? Are there contact marks? Are there scratches? Is the surface smooth? Does the coin show heavy circulation? This is where condition becomes extremely important. Imagine two 1971 Kennedy half-dollars sitting on a table. Both have the same date. Both are the same denomination. Both may even have the same mint mark, but one has spent decades in circulation. It's covered with scratches. The high points are worn. The surfaces are dull. The reverse details are weaker. The other coin has extremely sharp details. The surfaces are clean and original. The coin has very little wear. Would collectors treat both coins exactly the same? Of course not. That's why grading matters. And this is where many viral coin videos create confusion. Someone finds an old Kennedy half-dollar and immediately searches for the highest price they've ever seen. Then they assume their coin is worth the same amount. That's not how the market works. A high auction price belongs to a specific coin, a specific grade, a specific condition, a specific variety, a specific sale. Your coin has to be evaluated on its own characteristics. So when you see a headline claiming that a Kennedy half-dollar is worth an unbelievable amount, ask one simple question. Which exact coin? What year? What mint? What grade? What variety? What condition? Was it certified? And did someone actually pay that amount? Or was it simply an asking price? Those questions can save you from believing unrealistic claims. Now let's look at the reverse. Turn the coin over. You should see the presidential seal. Take a close look at the eagle. Study the shield. Look at the stars. Look at the lettering. Look for signs of wear. Look for scratches. Look for unusual raised features. Look at the overall strike. A strong strike can preserve much more detail than a weak example. But again, don't confuse a strong-looking feature with a rare error. A coin can have normal production characteristics that look unusual under certain lighting. That's why comparison is so important. Now let's talk about mint errors. This is one of the most exciting areas of coin collecting, but also one of the easiest areas to misunderstand. A genuine mint error happens during production. The coin is affected by something that occurs while it is being manufactured. For example, a coin can sometimes be struck off center. A die can develop a crack. A die can break or chip. A planchet can have a problem. A strike can create unusual characteristics. But a scratch created after the coin leaves the mint is not a mint error. A dent from a machine is not automatically a mint error. Damage from another coin is not automatically a mint error. And damage from someone trying to create an unusual appearance definitely isn't a valuable mint error. So when you find something strange, ask yourself, could this have happened at the mint? Or, does this look like damage that happened later? That question is extremely important. Now inspect the rim. Slowly rotate the coin. Look around the entire circumference. Is the rim complete? Does the coin appear properly centered? Does the design seem shifted? Is there unusual metal movement? If you see a possible off-center characteristic, take clear photographs. Photograph the entire reverse. Photograph the entire reverse. Then photograph the edge. Don't modify the coin. Don't straighten it. Don't bend it. Don't clean it. Preserve it. Now here is something else you can check. Look at the overall shape of the coin. Does it appear normal? Does the edge look consistent? Is there anything that looks dramatically different from a normal Kennedy half-dollar? Again, one strange mark doesn't prove anything. You need multiple pieces of evidence. That's how serious identification works. Now let's talk about surfaces. Hold the coin under a bright light. Tilt it slowly. Watch the way the light moves across the surface. Look for tiny scratches. Look for hairlines. Look for contact marks. Look for spots. Look for discoloration. Look for signs of cleaning. If the coin has been cleaned, that can affect its collector appeal. And this is why I keep repeating the same advice. Never clean a potentially valuable coin. You may think you're helping, you may actually be hurting it. A natural old surface tells a story. A polished surface can remove important evidence. So if you aren't sure what you're looking at, leave it alone. Now let's discuss the idea of being silver. This is especially important with Kennedy half-dollars because the composition changed over time. The early Kennedy half-dollars are famous among collectors for their silver content. But by 1971, the standard Kennedy half-dollar circulating issue was no longer the traditional 90% silver composition used on the earliest 1964 issue. So don't assume that simply seeing Kennedy half-dollar means your 1971 coin is a 90% silver coin. This is one of the most common misconceptions new collectors encounter. Composition matters, year matters, issue matters, mint matters, and sometimes special collector issues can have different compositions from regular circulation coins. That's why identification comes before valuation. Now imagine finding a 1971 Kennedy half-dollar in an old box. You pick it up. It feels substantial. It looks old. You see Kennedy's portrait, you see 1971, and you immediately think, this must be valuable. Stop right there. Instead of guessing, identify it. Check the mint mark. Check the composition if necessary. Check the condition. Check for varieties. Check for errors. Then research comparable examples. That's the smart way to do it. Now let's talk about grade. Coin grading is basically an assessment of how well a coin has survived. A heavily circulated coin will show wear. A high-grade coin can retain much stronger detail. But grading isn't simply, looks shiny equals high grade. It involves careful examination of wear, marks, surfaces, strike, luster, and other characteristics. That's why professional grading services exist. If you believe you've found an exceptional coin, professional certification may be worth considering. But don't send every old coin for grading. Do your research first. Compare the coin with certified examples. Understand the potential value, consider the cost, and make an informed decision. Now, here's a question. What would make your 1971 Kennedy half-dollar interesting? Maybe the coin has an unusual mint-made variety. Maybe it's an exceptional high-grade example. Maybe it has attractive original surfaces. Maybe it has a recognized error. Maybe it's simply an unusually well-preserved coin. The answer is different for every coin. That's why coin collecting is so fascinating. You don't know the answer until you investigate. Now let's imagine you have 3 Kennedy half dollars. One is from 1971. One is from another year. One is heavily worn. Put them under the same light. Compare their surfaces, compare the sharpness of the design, compare the lettering, compare the edges. You'll start noticing how dramatically circulation affects coins. Every contact mark tells a story. Every scratch tells a story. Every worn detail tells a story. And a well-preserved surface tells a different story. Now look again at Kennedy's hair. This is one of the areas where wear can become obvious. On a heavily circulated example, details may flatten. On a stronger example, fine details can remain much more defined. But remember, a coin's overall grade is based on the entire coin. Don't judge it from one tiny area. Look at everything. Now move to Kennedy's cheek. Look at the jaw. Look at the neck. Look at the lettering, then flip the coin. Study the eagle. Look at the shield. Look at the stars. Look at the lettering. You're training your eye? And the more coins you compare, the better your eye becomes. Now let's discuss cleaning again, because it can be one of the biggest value killers. If someone takes an old Kennedy half dollar and scrubs it until it looks bright, the result may look impressive to someone who isn't familiar with coins. But collectors may see something completely different. They may see hairlines, they may see unnatural surfaces, they may see altered color. They may see evidence that the original appearance has been disturbed. So don't make that mistake. If the coin is dirty, that's one thing. If you're unsure whether it should be cleaned, don't clean it. Get professional advice first. Now let's talk about online marketplaces. You may search for a 1971 Kennedy half-dollar value and see prices ranging from a few dollars to enormous numbers. Don't assume the highest number applies to your coin. Online listings can represent asking prices. They don't necessarily represent completed sales. Instead, look for verified auction records and comparable examples. If a coin actually sold for a certain amount, that's much stronger evidence than someone simply listing one for a huge price. And even then, compare the exact characteristics. A certified high-grade example may have almost nothing in common with a worn coin from circulation. Now imagine a collector finds your coin. What are they going to ask? What year? What mint? What grade? Any varieties? Any errors? Any cleaning? Any damage? Any unusual characteristics? Those are the questions you should be asking yourself right now. Now here's another important point. Don't confuse rarity with demand. A coin can be rare but have limited demand. Another coin can be relatively common but have strong collector interest. Value is influenced by supply and demand, condition, rarity, historical interest, variety, market timing, and buyer competition. That's why coin values can change. And that's why no responsible collector should guarantee that a particular coin will sell for a specific huge amount. Now let's return to your 1971 Kennedy half dollar. Look at the date again. 1971. The coin is now more than half a century old. Think about that. People were using this coin when the United States was very different from today. It passed through an economy that looked nothing like the modern world. It may have been in a gas station cash register. It may have been carried in someone's pocket. It may have sat in a bank bag. It may have been saved by a collector. It may have spent decades forgotten in a drawer, and now it's in your hands. That's already interesting, but maybe there's more. Now, inspect the coin's color. Does it have a normal appearance? Does it show toning? Does it have unusual discoloration? Does the color appear natural? Toning isn't automatically bad. In fact, some collectors appreciate attractive natural toning. But artificial toning and chemical alteration can be a different story. Again, preservation matters. Now let's talk about eye appeal. Imagine two coins with similar grades. One has attractive surfaces, pleasing color, and minimal distractions. The other has ugly marks, distracting spots, and an unattractive appearance. Collectors may prefer the first one. This is why a grading number isn't always the entire story. The coin itself matters. Now let's think about the possibility that your coin is completely normal. Is that a bad thing? Not at all. A normal 1971 Kennedy half dollar can still be a fascinating collectible. It represents an important period in American coinage. It carries the image of John F. Kennedy. It is part of one of the most recognizable U.S. coin series, and it can be the starting point for a much larger collection. The goal isn't to turn every coin into a jackpot. The goal is to learn what you're holding. Now here's where things become exciting again. Suppose you're looking through a pile of Kennedy half dollars. Most are ordinary. Then you notice one 1971 that looks different. Maybe the surfaces are unusually sharp. Maybe the strike is stronger. Maybe the mint mark looks unusual. Maybe the edge has a strange characteristic. What do? You separate it. You photograph it. You compare it. You research it. You preserve it. You don't spend it. That's the correct collector reaction. Now let's talk about a simple system you can use. Whenever you find an old Kennedy half-dollar, create 5 categories in your mind: date, mint mark, condition, variety, or error possibility. Composition. If you can answer those 5 questions, you're already far ahead of someone who simply looks at an online price chart. Now let's go deeper into the date. Why does 1971 matter? Because different years can have different compositions, mintages, varieties, and collector interest. The same denomination doesn't mean the same coin. A 1964 Kennedy half-dollar is not the same as a 1971 Kennedy half-dollar. A special collector issue isn't necessarily the same as a circulation strike, so always identify the exact issue. Now look at your coin's mint mark. Don't assume you know what you're seeing. Use magnification. If necessary, compare it with reference photographs. A tiny mint mark difference can matter, but again, only if it's a recognized characteristic. Now let's talk about double dyes. This term gets thrown around constantly online. A true double dye has specific characteristics created during dye production. It isn't the same as machine doubling. It isn't the same as a scratch. It isn't the same as a worn edge. It isn't the same as a random bump. So if you think you've found doubling, research the exact feature. Look at known examples. Compare the location, compare the shape, compare the direction. Don't rely on the phrase, looks doubled. That isn't enough. Now think about how many people spend coins without looking. A half-dollar may sit in a drawer for years. Someone finds it. They take it to a store. They spend it. The cashier puts it into a register. Another customer gets it. The process continues. That's why collectors love checking coins. You never know what might have been overlooked. But remember, that doesn't mean every coin is valuable. It means every coin has a possibility worth investigating when it has an unusual characteristic. Now let's talk about authentication. If you believe your coin is a major rarity, authentication becomes especially important. Why? Because valuable coins can attract counterfeiters. A professional service can help determine whether a coin is genuine and can assign a grade when appropriate. Don't rely only on a smartphone photograph. Don't rely only on a social media comment. Don't rely only on a random online seller. When the potential value becomes significant, professional evaluation becomes much more important. Now imagine someone tells you your 1971 Kennedy half-dollar is worth $50,000. Before getting excited, ask, why? What exact variety? What grade? What sale proves that value? Is it certified? Is the coin authentic? What comparable examples exist? If they can't answer those questions, don't treat the claim as fact. This is especially important in coin videos because dramatic headlines attract attention. But responsible collecting is based on evidence, and that's exactly what we're doing here. Now let's inspect the reverse one more time. Look at the eagle. Look at the shield. Look at the stars. Look at the lettering. Look for strong details. Look for wear. Look for scratches. Look for unusual raised lines. If something catches your attention, mark the location mentally. Then compare it with a normal example. That's how you learn. Now flip it again. Look at Kennedy. Study the hair. Study the cheek. Study the jaw. Look at the lettering. Study the date. Look at the overall surface. Now tilt the coin. Does the light move naturally across the surface? Do you see hairlines? Do you see unusual shine? Does the coin look like it has been polished? These observations can tell you a lot. Now here's another important warning. Never bend a coin to test it. Never scratch it to test the metal. Never cut it. Never drill it. Never attempt a home experiment on a potentially valuable coin. There are safer ways to identify composition and authenticity. Protect the coin first. Now let's talk about storage. If you're keeping an old Kennedy half-dollar, use an appropriate coin holder. Avoid unnecessary handling. Hold the coin by the edges when possible. Keep fingerprints off the surfaces. Store it somewhere dry and stable. The goal is to preserve what you found. Now imagine you discover a coin that appears exceptional. You've checked everything. The date is right. The mint mark is interesting. The surfaces are strong. The details are sharp. The coin appears original. What happens next? You research, you compare, you document, and if the evidence is strong, you consider professional grading or attribution. That's the path from suspicion to verification. Now, here is something many people don't realize. A coin can be valuable because it is a rare variety even if it isn't in perfect condition. Conversely, a coin can be in excellent condition but still be relatively common. That's why rarity and condition need to be evaluated separately. Then you combine them. Now let's imagine your 1971 Kennedy half-dollar is heavily worn. don't automatically throw it away. Maybe it's not a major rarity, but it still belongs to an important U.S. coin series. You can keep it as a historical piece. You can use it to compare with better examples. You can use it to learn grading. Every coin has educational value. Now let's imagine it's an exceptional coin. That's where your inspection becomes even more important. The better the coin looks, the more careful you should be about preserving it. Don't handle the surfaces. Don't put it loose with other coins. Don't carry it around in your pocket. Don't clean it. Keep it protected. Now here's the question everyone wants answered. How much is a 1971 Kennedy half-dollar worth? The honest answer is, it depends. That's not a boring answer. It's the correct answer. A normal circulated example may have modest collector value. A special variety, error, or exceptional grade example can be worth considerably more. The exact amount depends on the specific coin and current market demand. That's why the date alone isn't enough. You have to identify the coin. Now let's talk about the difference between face value and collector value. Face value is 50 cents. Collector value can be higher when collectors want a specific coin. But don't assume every old coin has a huge premium. The market decides, and the market is based on real transactions. So if you're researching your 1971 Kennedy half-dollar, look for actual completed sales. Compare the same date. Compare the same mint. Compare similar grades, compare the same variety. That's much more useful than simply searching for the highest price ever seen. Now let's imagine you have an entire jar of Kennedy half-dollars. Don't inspect them randomly. Sort them by year, then sort by mint. Then pull out unusual-looking examples. That makes the search much more efficient. Start with the older dates. Check unusual mint marks. Look for strong condition. Then investigate varieties. This is how serious coin hunters organize their searches. Now here is another hook for you. What if you've been looking at the wrong part of the coin? Most people immediately check the date. That's smart. But collectors also examine the mint mark, surfaces, strike, edge, and design details. Sometimes the clue isn't where you expect it. That's why a complete inspection is better than a quick glance. Now let's talk about toning. If your 1971 Kennedy half-dollar has developed natural color over time, don't automatically assume it's damaged. Natural toning can occur as metals interact with their environment. Some collectors find attractive toning desirable, but unusual or artificial-looking coloration can raise questions. Again, the goal is identification, not assumptions. Now look at your coin under different lighting. A coin can look completely different under warm indoor light, daylight, and bright white light. That's why you shouldn't judge color from one photograph alone. Use multiple angles, use neutral lighting, and compare with known examples. Now here's another mistake to avoid. Don't assume that a coin with a tiny mark is automatically rare. A coin that has circulated for decades will naturally collect marks. A rare error needs to have a recognizable mint-made explanation. If the feature doesn't make sense as part of the manufacturing process, be cautious. Now think about the journey of your coin. Maybe it was struck in 1971. Maybe it entered circulation. Maybe it was spent dozens of times. Maybe someone saved it. Maybe it sat untouched for years. Maybe it was inherited. Every coin has a different story, and that story can sometimes be visible in the surfaces. Now let's return to the biggest lesson. The coin is not valuable because a video says it is. The coin is valuable because its characteristics, rarity, condition, authenticity, and market demand support that conclusion. That's the difference between entertainment and responsible collecting. So when you're checking your 1971 Kennedy half-dollar, don't chase a number. Chase the evidence. Now one final inspection. Look at the date, 1971. Look at the mint mark. Look at Kennedy's portrait. Look at the lettering. Look at the reverse. Look at the eagle. Look at the shield. Look at the stars. Look at the edge. Look at the surfaces. Look at the color. Then compare it with a normal example. If nothing unusual appears, you still have a piece of American history. If something does appear, preserve the coin, research it, and, if necessary, have it professionally evaluated. Because the difference between interesting and valuable is verification. Now imagine you're about to spend the coin. It's sitting in your hand. You walk into a store, you see something you want. You reach for the Kennedy half-dollar. But then you remember this video. You stop. You look at the date. 1971. You look at the mint mark. You look at the surfaces. And suddenly you realize you haven't actually inspected it. That 5-second decision could be the difference between keeping an interesting collectible and accidentally spending it for 50 cents. Again, I'm not saying every 1971 Kennedy half-dollar is rare. I'm saying check before you spend. That's the smart move. because you don't need every coin to be valuable. You only need to recognize the one that deserves a closer look, and that's what makes coin collecting so much fun. The next coin might be ordinary. The one after that might be interesting. And every once in a while, you might find something that makes you stop and say, wait, what is this? That's the moment you're looking for. So grab your magnifying glass, grab your old coin jar, pull out those Kennedy half dollars, and start checking. Look at the dates, look at the mint marks, look at the condition, look at the surfaces, look for recognized varieties, look for genuine mint errors. And most importantly, don't clean anything that might be valuable, because the best discoveries aren't always the coins that look impressive from the beginning. Sometimes the best discoveries are the coins that look completely ordinary until you look closer and closer and closer, until one tiny detail catches your eye. Maybe it's the date, maybe it's the mint mark, maybe it's an unusual design feature, maybe it's exceptional preservation, maybe it's nothing at all, but you'll never know until you check. So before you spend that 1971 Kennedy half dollar, stop for a moment. Turn it over. Inspect both sides. Protect the coin. Research the evidence, and remember, don't chase the biggest claim. Chase the real clue. Because 50 cents in your hand may simply be 50 cents. But if that coin has a genuine rare characteristic, exceptional condition, or recognized variety, it could be a coin worth investigating much more closely. And that's the real excitement of collecting American coins. You aren't just searching for money, you're searching for history. You're searching for mistakes made at the mint. You're searching for unusual survivors. You're searching for stories that have lasted for decades. And sometimes that story begins with a coin most people would have spent without thinking twice. So take one final look at your 1971 Kennedy half dollar. Check the date. Check the mint mark. Check the portrait. Check the reverse. Check the edge. Check the surfaces. And if something looks unusual, don't spend it. Set it aside. Protect it. Take photographs. Compare it with verified examples and find out what you actually have, because the biggest mistake you can make with an interesting old coin isn't failing to sell it for a huge price. It's never realizing that you had something worth investigating in the first place. So check your Kennedy half dollars before you spend them. And especially check that 1971 example sitting in your collection. You might find nothing unusual. You might find a nice collector coin, or you might find a detail that sends you searching for answers. And that's where the real adventure begins.